So we're live. I want to thank God for the opportunity. Again, I am grateful for the understanding that He's been giving me. I'm just going to put my phone on silence because when I started this live stream, I was not planning to have 3 sessions of this, but as I was going through the process and also looking at scriptures, some ideas and things were occurring to me that I thought, oh, this will plug in into the topic, the big topic that I started discussing on this night, which is the comparison of reading and studying the Bible. So in this session, we're diving in deeper into a particular perception that I saw, which I feel is good for me to compare between which is a good thing to use in terms of context, how context of a verse or understanding can make a difference in the interpretation that you give, maybe a doctrine or your outlook on a particular issue in the scriptures. So I, I was reading the book of Job, and I'm going to read to you what is the main scripture that prompted this discussion. So, from the book of Job, we know the story of Job, how he was in a state where he was very, he's been attacked, lost everything, and some of his friends came around to visit him in order to comfort him, and they were making all kinds of they were having conversations and I think arguments as well, because they strongly believed that Job must have done something to warrant or to make him to deserve the great calamity that has come on him. So many times one of them would, if you read the whole chapter, one of them is speaking and trying to justify his point of view, and then Job will respond. So this idea that I'm going to talk about came from one of Job's responses. No, one of his friends' responses after Job had spoken. So the point is that they were saying that Job must have done something wrong, and Job was insisting that he can't, that he's righteous. He could not think of what he's done. Anyway, so I'm reading from the book of Job, chapter 25, verses 1 to 2. So this is Bildad and the Shuhite talking, and he said, dominion and fear belong to him. He makes peace in his high places. He was referring to God, is referring to God. Is there any number to his armies? This is God. Upon whom does his light not rise? How then can a man be righteous before God? Or how can he be born, can he be pure who is born of a woman? So that was the statement I read that made me to think, hang on, at the beginning of Job, we saw what God actually said. God Himself said. Maybe it's a good idea to read the beginning of Job when God was having that conversation with Satan. So, what did God say? God said, no, actually, the Job was introduced as a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. Now, if we go further to verse 6, all right, verse 6. Oh, yeah, verse 8. Then the Lord said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil? In my this verse is this book, this Bible is the NKJV. My version says perfect. That was the description that the Lord used to of Job, and he said it again a second time when he was talking to Satan. So God considered Job to be perfect. If God said he's perfect, who is Job or any of his friends to say that he's not perfect? God said that Job is upright. In other words, I can say that God was seeing him as righteous, as a righteous man. Now, let's not forget that God's perception of us is more important. And if God says we are righteous, who is a man, any man, to consider us not to be righteous? So, this man, Job's friend, is saying that it's not possible for man to be righteous before God, and that man cannot be pure. So, my my thoughts about this is that he, yes, is saying that God is majestic. He made all this because he was thinking about dominion. He was thinking about the creation, the inanimate things that the Lord made, how magnificent they are, and how magnificent God himself is. So, how can mere man be righteous? I think that is what he's looking at. When I first read this, my mind went to this book of Psalms, Psalm 8. And I'm going to read what the psalmist says there, what the psalmist said in verse 8. I had it in this one. This is this verse, this is NIV, so this is good. So Psalm 8 says, O Lord our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. So the psalmist is appreciating the majestic nature of God and his majesty. From the lips of children and infants, you have ordained praise because of your enemies, to silence the foe and the avenger. Now, he's now saying, firstly, he was appreciating God. I'm talking about, his greatness. Now he says, when I consider your heavens and the works of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in places. What is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you care for him? So we can see, actually, I shouldn't stop there because he goes on to say that you made him a little lower than the heavenly beings, that is the angels. It says angels in KJV, and crowned him with honor and glory. You made him ruler over the works of your hand, and you put everything under his feet, all the flocks and the herds and the beasts of the field and the birds of the air and the fish of the sea and all that swim in the path of the sea. O Lord our God, how majestic is your name. So what I'm trying to say here, look at the psalmist is also appreciating the majestic nature of God and the nature of creation, both inanimate things and other living things. But at the same time, is also appreciating the fact that God has set man above all. And he's trying to say, wow, it's like when you think about yourself, maybe you're in a relationship and you wonder, why does this person love me so much? So number one, you're acknowledging the fact that that person loves you extensively, and you're thinking, why? You're not saying, why does this person love me so much? I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Now, these two men that have look at the majestic nature of God's creation, appreciate God as being wonderful. One of them, however, can see that God, in his infinite mercy and grace, has made man to become the head, and God has made man to be special to him. He has placed man in a special place in his heart. So one of them can see that, the other one can't. And I think the context in which these scriptures or these people, the times in which they live, probably influence their perception. Because come to think of it, I understand that the book of Job is it precedes the writings of Moses. So the perception of the people in that time is that God is so great, we should worship him, but we can't be righteous. Whereas it's in the writings of Moses that we see Abraham, the interaction of God with Abraham, and what is written in the book of Genesis. I think it's chapter, let me see, I can read that. Genesis chapter 16. Is it 16 or 15? Yes, it's 15, verse 6. God spoke to Abraham and he said, and he believed in the Lord, and he counted to it to him for righteousness. So the fact that Abraham believed God, God elevated him and said, I counted your faith in me, that I counted it for you for righteousness. So it's not really the works of our hands that makes us righteous. It's a position that the Lord has placed us that makes us righteous. And the psalmist understood that because the books of Moses were already written. Well, many people believe that a huge part of the psalms were written by David the king, and we know that David was a man that had relationship with God, so he had the scriptures. It was a commandment for the kings then to read the scriptures, and I want to believe that David would have been familiar with the scriptures, with the books of Moses, and which you would have seen the the fact that Abraham believed God and was counted unto him for righteousness, because that's in the book of Genesis. So David was exposed to that teaching, and that would have informed, or part of the things that would have shaped his understanding, his belief, and his perception of the way the Lord sees human beings and sees his children. So all of these things put together makes me to see the importance of having, or looking at the contextual aspect, or the looking at the scriptures, interpreting it and trying to see it from the point of view of the context in which it was written. Because certainly, I may be wrong, but this is the conclusion I'm bringing out from here, that this man, Job's friend, was limited because of the time and the teaching or the understanding that prevailed around that time about God. That's why he could not see that Job was righteous. Whereas the psalmist, because he's exposed to the teaching of Moses, and of course, that would have shaped his understanding of the things of God. So he could see himself, despite the majestic nature of creation, he still could see himself that God has elevated man more than any other living thing, even how much more the inanimate things. So if these examples is suggesting to us that the view of these two people inform their understanding, then it means that for us today that have the scriptures, we have an advantage. We have the whole counsel of God written, given to us, made available to us in the scriptures. And we should explore the things that are written and try to understand. Don't forget that the reason I'm talking, we have this live stream, is to look at Bible reading versus Bible study. They both have their place. You have to do both because they serve different purposes. But we should not place one above the other, and make sure that we try to carefully divide our time between studying and reading of the Bible, which would help us to be more robust in our understanding of, number one, the things of God, and even to see God in the way that He actually presented Himself in the scriptures. So it would inform us and make us better um, in our walk with God. So that's one of the things main thing that I wanted to discuss in this live stream. And I'm just wondering if either I've got somebody that is viewing that they have a perception, or they have a contribution, a question they want to ask, they can type it so that I'll be able to respond to that. And if not, other people that watch it on YouTube, because this is going to be on the platform, you can also put in a question which I will be able to respond to as they do that, they leave their comment. So I hope this session has been beneficial to you, and I just want you to think about how you have been interpreting the scriptures. How have you been looking at scriptures? How have you been coming up with the verses you see in scriptures, and coming up with the coming away with an understanding? Do you read through, or just take a verse, and if it applies to a situation that you want it, would you take it and run with it, or try to see that the five whys, five W's, like somebody would say? uh, why was it said? Who said it? Why was it said? When? And who were they talking to? And things like that. Do you use those questions to try um, to understand what a verse is? And I always suggest to people not to just pick a verse, but rather to look at it and maybe read the whole chapter, maybe the chapter before and after, and the one after that chapter in which you found the verse, which may form the immediate context. Sometimes it may not even be enough, but if we get into the habit of doing things like that, I think that with time it would enhance our understanding, and we'll see the need of not jumping into conclusion based on the so to say immediate, or what the verse looks as if it's talking about straight away. With time, we would see that that's the best approach to have good understanding. I mean, to look at things in context. Because, for instance, look at what we've been talking about. The book and the time in which the books were written, it shaped the understanding and perception of the people that are looking at man, how God relates or places man. So let me know your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube. And all right, I can see scientists get annoyed when people quote their work out of context. Exactly. Thank you. It is just not right to quote, or to take things out of context, because it's just not possible to have the accurate meaning or interpretation of either a verse or work when you're trying to get the meaning. Thank you, Toby, for saying that. You're really agreeing with me, I can see on that. Yeah, I remember somebody used to, there was a conversation I had some time ago with somebody saying, "Oh, which uni do you think is better? Is it this one or that one?" Because I did my postgraduate in a different uni. And I said, I really cannot compare them, because number one, I was at different stages when I was studying in those schools. And you really need to narrow things down if you want to make a comparison. So you're absolutely right with regards to this contribution you have made. Thank you so much, Toby. I appreciate that. Right, I'm going to end now the live stream if I don't have any more contribution to this or any more question. So I hope to see you at another time and people to join in more. This is going to be a thing now on on Friday, every 8 o'clock on Fridays. Thank you, Toby. Bye.